I just saw the weigh-in for the Jared Anderson Charles Martin fight that's taking place tomorrow night. And Charles Martin is in good shape. And I mean, some of the best shape I've seen him in, which is a little surprising given the fact he's come in as a late replacement. I think he took the fight on what, 2 weeks' notice? Something like that. So he was obviously in the gym for a good long while before he got this phone call. I don't know whether he was training for another fight or whether he just stays in the gym year round now. But to give you an example of what I'm talking about, his last fight against Devin Vargas was in September last year, and he weighed 260 pounds. For this fight against Jared Anderson, he's 250 pounds. He's 10 pounds lighter than he was for his last fight. So, yeah, this guy's been in the gym and he's been staying in shape. And why am I distracted by this? Charles Martin's been doing mixed martial arts? Excuse me here, people. He got submitted and he's got 3 losses and no wins in MMA? I never knew he. Anyway, let me not. That's another video, maybe. So, yeah, walks the earth like a god, Charles Martin, back in boxing since he's been getting his butt handed to him in MMA, taking this fight with Jared Anderson on very short notice, but turning up in shape. And, he looked like he meant business at the face-off, all up in Jared Anderson's face. But you'd expect that. I mean, fighters, even when they turn up to lie down, sometimes they could look real confident at weigh-ins or whatever. So I don't read too much into that. I'm more reading into his weight. 250 pounds is a good weight for Charles Martin in recent years. Again, give you some examples. When he beat Gerald Washington, he was 254 back in 2020. When he beat Daniel Martz in 2019, he was 253. When he beat Gregory Corbin in 2019, 254. You have to go all the way back to the Kaunaki fight in 2018 to find a time when he's been lighter than this. Or actually, tell a lie. In the Luis Ortiz fight, he was several pounds lighter than this. But other than that, you'd have to go all the way back to then. So you get the point I'm making here. This is a good weight for Charles Martin. And if you saw him at the weigh-in, you'd see that aesthetically he's in good shape. Because sometimes it comes down to, how much muscle there is versus fat, the muscle to fat ratio and all that kind of thing. But Charles Martin looks in good shape. Jared Anderson, obviously young guy, always looks in good shape. And he really has a great physique for fighting, because you see some guys like Deontay Wilder, for example, very skinny, skinny legs, naturally skinny all over, but over time, obviously, he's gained some bulk in the chest and in the shoulders. But you look at Deontay Wilder's physique and you think, okay, he's going to have problems in certain areas. He's going to have problems with heavier guys pushing him back. He's going to have problems because of the very skinny legs and the extremely long arms, maybe with some coordination, especially for a heavyweight, right? If you're tall, 6'7", and you've got a long reach, if you don't have enough muscle on your body to be able to control those long limbs, then you're going to look a little uncoordinated, as Deontay Wilder does. Because you look at a guy like Lennox Lewis, who I think has the same reach as Deontay Wilder. I think Lewis had an 84-inch reach, maybe a bit longer. He looked much more coordinated, okay, because the muscle is able to coordinate those long limbs. But Deontay Wilder, not as much muscle to be able to control all that stuff. So you look at Wilder and you think, okay, power there, obviously, but he's going to have issues with coordination, issues with people pushing him back. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got the likes of an Anthony Joshua, very muscular guy, and you think, well, he's going to have problems with stamina. He's going to have problems with fluidity. Then you have someone like Jared Anderson, who's right there in the middle. I mean, he's built like a light heavyweight. Yeah, you see a lot of light heavyweight fighters or even middleweight or super middleweight fighters who have this similar kind of physique to a Jared Anderson, where they're not really big and bulky, but they're not skinny either. They're right there in the middle. They're just athletic, and they're not so slim that they can easily be pushed around and bullied, but they're not so bulky that they're going to struggle to be fluid and struggle with their stamina and so on. In fact, one of the most impressive things for me about Jared Anderson is his conditioning. Incredible conditioning from what I've seen so far. Now, he hasn't been very long in a fight, so that might sound a little off, me saying that. But I'm really talking about his performance against Jerry Forrest. It did end in 2 rounds, but Jared Anderson landed, or threw, should I say, over 100 punches in the first round. And by the end of it, he wasn't even out of breath. For a heavyweight, that is absolutely incredible. In fact, for a super middleweight, that's incredible. Do you think Canelo Alvarez could throw over 100 punches in the first round and not be out of breath by the end of it? He probably needs to take about 3 rounds off to recover. And here we have Jared Anderson, 243 pounds. What was he against Jerry Forrest? 239. Throwing over 100 punches, not even out of breath. And then he comes out for the second round and sticks it on Jerry Forrest again. And that's how he got Jerry Forrest out of there. He just totally overwhelmed him. Because Jerry Forrest, if you allow him to box, he's actually quite a dangerous journeyman. I mean, we saw that in the Zhilei Zhang fight. Michael Hunter found that out when he had his rematch with Jerry Forrest a couple years back, that he'd improved a lot since their first encounter, evidently. So Forrest is a guy, if you give him time and space to box, he can give you some problems. But Jared Anderson didn't give him any time and space. He just totally overwhelmed him with a ridiculous amount of punches, trapped him in a corner and wouldn't let him out until the fight was over. So very, very impressed by Anderson's conditioning, incredible conditioning. And that does come, of course, or at least partly, with the age. He's only 23. So when you're a teenager, you've got all that incredible energy where you could, run a marathon and climb a mountain and all that kind of thing. You're just bursting with energy. You don't know what to do with it. And Anderson has carried that through into his early 20s. He's tried to maintain that energy level. It's like riding the crest of a wave, I mean, I remember Adam Booth actually talking about this, where that youthful energy, if you don't maintain it, once you lose it, it never really comes back ever. So the people who are able to maximize their physical ability throughout their 20s are people who don't allow themselves to lose that youthful fitness from their teens. Yeah, and Jared Anderson right now is doing that at the moment because, the energy level. And, you get some older fighters who are able to build up their stamina and, they end up being real war horses like Derek Chisora. And those guys sometimes can throw a lot of punches. But when you see them throwing a lot of punches, you can tell it's a massive effort. Even if they did throw 100 punches around, they're straining, their faces like, just to get the punches out. With Jared Anderson, when he threw over 100 punches in that first round against Jerry Forrest, it was effortless. Do you know what I mean? And that's what comes with youth. You can just throw 100 punches like it's nothing, face completely poker face, not straining at all, and so on. So yeah, that's one of the most impressive things for me about Jared Anderson is just that conditioning. But Charles Martin coming in good shape himself. He's obviously the most experienced, the most accomplished opponent that Jared Anderson will have fought so far. Former IBF champion, although, not much of a reign for King Charles Martin. But yeah, he's been in there with some obviously good operators, Anthony Joshua, Luis Ortiz, Adam Kaunaki, and so on. Back in the days when Kaunaki was still okay. Not that Kaunaki we just saw get beaten to a bloody pulp last weekend. So yeah, he brings a lot of experience and he has some power, Charles Martin. He's definitely not a guy that you want to leave your chin hanging out in front of, because that backhand of his from the southpaw position can do damage. Just ask Luis Ortiz and various other people that Charles Martin has dropped and stopped. So actually, the right hand dropped Luis Ortiz as well, didn't it? When Charles Martin fought him. I think it was actually a jab, a really solid jab that Luis Ortiz walked into at one point, and down he went. So maybe the right hand as well from Charles Martin could do some damage and cause Anderson some problems if he's not careful. Be that as it may, as good a shape as Charles Martin appears to be in, and as motivated as he appears to be, I fully expect Jared Anderson to stop him and do so decisively with no controversy or anything like that. I think he'll hurt this guy and get rid of him. But again, he does need to be careful because Anderson has been a bit defensively sloppy in the past. We saw him get clipped against Jerry Forrest. And I would say that Charles Martin is going to hit quite a bit harder than Jerry Forrest. So you don't want to get clipped on the chin with Martin's left hand. Eventually, we're going to find out what kind of chin Anderson really has. You know, these guys who have been clipping him haven't exactly been monster punchers. So, although, that being said, Jerry Forrest did manage to hurt Zheli Zhang late on, quite badly, right? And Zhang appears to be a tough guy, but maybe that was as much fatigue as the concussive effect of Jerry Forrest's punches. In any event, this might be the fight where Anderson's chin gets tested and we find out what kind of chin he really has when he gets hit by someone who can crack like Charles Martin. I'm not saying Charles Martin is an elite puncher, but, you know, he's definitely got decent power there for sure. So, interesting to see how this one goes, but I fully expect Jared Anderson to come through in impressive fashion and get the veteran Charles Martin out of there. I want to say in no more than 6 rounds. He might get extended a little further than he's gone before. In fact, how long has Jared Anderson gone? Okay, he did go 6 against Kingsley eBay. I remember that fight. I think that's probably the most challenged he's been in a fight, and it wasn't a massive challenge for him, to be fair. He controlled it with his jab pretty much from start to finish and then produced a brutal knockout at the end. But that went 6 rounds back in 2021. This fight might go that long as well. I want to say at the most 7 rounds. You might have to do some thinking in there. You might not just be able to go in and walk through Charles Martin. I mean, I wouldn't discount it. You know, Anderson does start fast and he hits hard. And again, he's a young guy. Definitely got the power to put Charles Martin away, Jared Anderson, that is, whenever he starts landing clean. But yeah, because of Martin's experience and that backhand and the fact he's in shape, it might take a few rounds possibly to get in a position where he can land on Martin without taking the big left hand back. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you surprised that Charles Martin has turned up in such good shape? And how are you expecting this fight to go? I know some of you guys think that this is actually a better opponent than Zhan Kosabutsky. I can't really say whether it is or isn't because Kosabutsky is an unknown quantity. I've seen him fight a couple times, but he hasn't fought anybody of note. So we really don't know how good he is. A lot of people, or some people at least, were saying that they thought it was a great 50-50 fight between Anderson and Kosabutsky. They thought Kosabutsky actually stood a good chance. Maybe those are people who have watched him a lot more than me. You know, other people were on the other end of the scale saying Kosabutsky's rubbish and Charles Martin's actually better. Well, Charles Martin is more well-known, but that doesn't mean he's better. And that's a mistake that sometimes newer boxing fans make. They think that if someone's not well-known, then they can't be any good, or if there are 2 fighters and you're comparing them, the one who's more well-known must be the better one. Yeah, that isn't always the case. In fact, it's often not the case. So I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.